This is the Zone 1 podcast for a premium travel experience. The Zone 1 podcast brings you incredible travel opportunities and excursions through networktravel.ca. The Zone 1 podcast features the legendary Jackie Ray Greening, Rick McSwain from Network Travel, and I'm your host, Terry Evans. Here we are once again, the Zone 1 podcast for a premium travel experience. We'll remind you right off the hop of Jackie Ray, Rick, and Terry hosting the Mexico Golf Fun and Social and Easy Decision Getaway. It's the Mexican Golf Experience, Unlimited Golf, and the Moon Palace Jack Nicklaus signature courses at the Moon Palace Resort, November 3rd to the 10th in Cancun, Mexico. So go to networktravel.ca to sign up for that trip. How many people? Is it infinite? That we can have as many people as we want on that trip, Rick?
Yep, until the resort's sold out. I think we've got about 120 people now. No, I'm just kidding. We have, I think, close to 40 though, which is really good.
Wow, that's very impressive. So I'm very excited about this, all indeed. Let's turn our attention now to Jackie Ray Greening, who is, what highway are you on?
Excellent question. Where the hell are we? What's his name? We're heading to Sedgwick, so I think we're still on the hand date to get on to 14, I think. Oh. Yeah, so we're going to the Mr. and Mrs. Golf Tournament in Sedgwick. Oh. And actually, a great story about that is there's 6 couples that have been to Africa with us, have been to Vietnam with us, have been all over the world with us, Tahiti, the South Pacific, and we all get together and we're staying a few days out at the Sedgwick Golf Course and golfing and having some laughs. So that's when we talk about you build a community when you travel. It's exactly what happens.
I'm going out to join them, so it's going to be a shaker.
Oh, is that right? Wow, my invite must have got lost in my junk mail or something. What the hell?
It's the Mr. and Mrs. Golf Tournament. Wanda Price stole my husband, and her husband is out seeding out at the farm, so I had to find a new husband, and I asked 42 people, and then finally Rick came.
I don't feel bad now.
Well, without further ado, we also have a guest on the podcast this week. We're not going into any place in particular, aside from talking about the Mexico Golf Experience coming up November 3rd to the 10th, which you can sign up for at networktravel.ca. But today we are here with our guest, Judy, correct me if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, Judy Bunkall?
That is correct.
Okay, Judy is from Manulife Insurance, and we are going to be talking about travel insurance today because it's one of those things where, believe you me, I found out the hard way with my wife suffering an injury in Mexico. If you do not have travel insurance, you are going to be up the proverbial creek without a paddle. And we are so thankful that we had it when my wife was injured in Mexico. It ended up being well, I can't even imagine what kind of an experience it would have been without it, because it was a nightmare even with it, but it made it so much easier. Judy, where do we start with travel insurance? I suppose, Rick, you would know it better than anybody else how important it is. And Judy would just be able to back it all up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the old story is, or in days gone by, including myself when I was in my 20s, it was like, oh, I'm not going to get sick. I don't need travel insurance. And more we're starting to realize, certainly now that we're getting a little bit older. Well, you guys are, I'm not. But we're starting to realize that anything can happen. And right now it's so bloody expensive. I mean, we've got so many stories of people that, including you, Terry, that without insurance, it would have been absolutely astronomical, the costs and the inconvenience and just the overall thought right now of going without travel insurance is just not a good idea at all. The other thing too is, and we can touch on this and we'll get your expertise, Judy, but people think they're covered and they're not. People don't realize until they need it. Some people think their credit card is all they need. They've got it. They're not going to spend any more because of the cost possibly or whatever. And they don't realize that credit card insurance sometimes doesn't cover everything you need. And some of the other things too is all these different variations of insurance out there where when you need it, you go in and then they say, well, we need your credit card, and you can go back to your insurance and try to get the money refunded later. And that's when you have then some insurance companies are very difficult because you have to submit expenses and you have to justify what the expenses are for. And all of these things run into a major hassle. But with Manulife, we use as our preferred insurance provider, none of those things are ever an issue. It's just incredible. So what do you think, Jude?
Well, first of all, insurance is extremely important. I mean, I could tell you the amount of stories we get all the time, and just seeing the amount of claims that are paid and what people would be out of pocket. I think in general, though, everybody talks about the medical insurance side of things. But do you know what one of our biggest claims situations happening right now is? Trip disruption and trip interruption. We always say not if it happens, it's only when it happens, because it will happen. There's flight delays, flight cancellations, weather delays, all these things happen, and that disrupts. So you've got a flight that gets canceled. You now need to scramble either to get a new flight or hope that the airline will be able to put you on another flight. But that could mean a couple of days getting you to your destination. So out-of-pocket expenses, people have no idea what that could cost them. So if they have travel insurance, they've got the benefit in the plan they purchase with that trip interruption, trip disruption, they're going to have something they can recoup. They're not going to be out of pocket all this money. So I think that's the thing. But when you talk about medical insurance, absolutely. We're seeing really high dollar medical claims coming in, and we're not talking 50,000. We're talking, even up to $1 million in medical claims. And I'd like to say to somebody, do you have that kind of money if you run into a really serious situation? So we all think we're invincible, or at least we did when we were younger. When you mentioned, Rick, in our 20s, I think when you're in your 20s, you don't think anything's going to happen to you. But believe me, you can step off a curb and fall on your face. And that's doesn't seem all that bad, but believe me, there's a lot of things to that. And when you're out of the country, the costs involved are going to be very expensive.
I think one of the things too, Rick, you mentioned just saying, oh, I've got insurance on my credit card, or whatever situation you're set up with a travel card or points card, or however you're rigged up through your bank or provider. The other thing to keep in mind as well is very often there are upfront costs. And like you mentioned, Judy, they get reimbursed after the fact. But the thing is, if you've got, let's just take a rough figure. Say you've got a $30,000 limit on your credit card, but you're carrying a balance of $18,000 or $12,000, whatever it might be for one reason or another. That's none of my business. That's you do you. But if you've got $12,000 already on your credit card and you've only got $18,000 remaining, a lot of times the first thing that happens is way more than $18,000 when you're on the doorstep or at the reception desk of the hospital, right?
Absolutely. And that's a key point, the fact that majority of credit cards, now I can't speak for all of them because I don't know all the different credit cards out there, but most credit cards, it is use your credit card to pay your hospital bill. And they will certainly probably help you to increase your limit. But then you have to fill out your claim when you're home. And let's say your bill is $50,000. Do we all know what credit card interest is? You're paying interest on that card until you get your claim paid. What we do is there's the upfront wherever and whenever possible on insurance when you buy travel insurance. That is so that the client, when they're in a medical situation and they're in hospital, the assistance center is getting involved. And now all of a sudden they've got that lifeline. They're starting to try and set up direct billing. They're talking to the medical team on the ground, finding out what's going on. So there's a lot of sort of action going on behind the scenes when that client is in distress.
A lot of times too, there's an order in which to do things. Is that correct? Or because I seem to recall having a conversation about this once before on the Zone 1 podcast, talking about an order in which to reach out to medical insurance and everything involved?
You would contact the assistance center. So everybody that purchases a policy will get their 24/7 emergency phone number to get a hold of the assistance center. And from there, when that's sort of the first step. Now, obviously, if you're in an accident, unconscious, you can't get to the assistance center for a few days. But you want to get them involved as quickly as possible, because as soon as they're involved, they're helping take over the situation. And often they're calming the people down, because it's very stressful. They've got a loved one that's just had an accident and they need assistance and they're panicking. So these people are there to help them. And that's what you want to do. The first step is, yes, call the assistance center.
Let's face it, by the time November rolls around, you are going to be about ready for an all-inclusive trip to Mexico. Why not join Jackie Ray Greening, Rick McSwain from Network Travel, and me for an all-inclusive trip to the Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, November 3rd to the 10th. But the chef's kiss? Unlimited golf. I mean, sure, you've got the all-inclusive everything at the Moon Palace Resort. I've stayed at a Moon Palace Resort before. They're fabulous. But unlimited golf. Cart fee not included. It's $90 US per round. But everything else is, even the food and drinks on the golf course. All you have to do is go to networktravel.ca to find out more. Jackie Ray Greening, Rick McSwain from Network Travel, and me hosting the all-inclusive, all-you-can-golf trip to Mexico, Cancun, November 3rd to the 10th, networktravel.ca. Jackie Ray, have you ever had an instance where you've had to rely on medical insurance when traveling?
I have not. I've been lucky enough, though it was interesting with Manulife. That's who we bought our insurance when we did the South Pacific, and then we stayed another month in New Zealand because my work insurance had cut off when I retired at the end of November. And then I had to go, okay, I got to go get travel insurance now. I've never done this before, which, by the way, my Manulife rep was sweet. It was so easy to do and so important and just, but luckily, knock on wood, I've never had to use it.
Rick and Judy, you can maybe both answer this. Judy first. People go through the process of Googling their destination and looking up hotels, looking up resorts, looking up the best flight deals, looking up this or having it all done with networktravel.ca and then just, looking for things to explore once they get to their destination. Why do so many people leave their insurance until the last minute and just almost an afterthought?
Well, unfortunately, that is, I think people always think of it that way, that number one, they don't believe they really need it. Or two, it's sort of an afterthought. It really needs to be put into the whole planning process when you're planning a trip to budget, the travel insurance side of it. And unfortunately, let's face it, I guess it's really exciting looking at all these lovely hotels and booking, African safaris and that. And then people think, oh, insurance. Oh, so, you got to kind of bring that sexiness back into the insurance side of the conversation, I guess, just as much as, booking your cruise or booking something else. It's making it realize the importance of it. But, unfortunately, that is always, and I think, Rick, you can attest to this with the team there. I talk to your team all the time, and, it's like, oh, so-and-so, just trying to get over this because they say they don't need it and this and that. So it's just that conversation, sort of just having to try and help educate the clients the importance of it.
And Rick, you've been on so many trips and traveled with so many groups. You've probably seen it firsthand where people think, it's never going to happen to me. What do you think the biggest misconception is about, even broaching the subject or buying the travel insurance?
Well, I think most people don't realize I think the best way for people to understand is people that have witnessed friends or heard family or something like that needed it. Otherwise, people still have that mindset that they probably won't need it, or what they do have is fine with their credit card. And again, I guess the point of this too is to bring awareness to insurance. We're not physically here trying to sell insurance, but Yeah, and I mean, there's tons of stories. I mean, I've traveled a lot with different groups and things, and I was just in Kenya, and we had a couple of ladies that I had to take to the hospital. As soon as we go in, the misconception too in Africa is that the healthcare system is so backwards, and it's not. It's more advanced than it is here, honestly. The doctor had one of our guests in a private room within an hour and a half. And then he came back after doing x-rays and doing all of these different things to tell her that she had a cyst behind her kneecap, which was the reason why her doctor here in Canada said she needs a knee replacement. He also told her that she had a heart murmur and a few other things that she wasn't even aware of. It's interesting. I think I mentioned this before. You go into a hospital and you put your thumb on a little keypad, and it brings up your profile if you've been there before. So they're quite advanced. And I think that the thing that got me was right away, Manulife Insurance was all we had to do is open a claim. We called the 800 number. Within 15 minutes, the email was sent directly to the front desk at the hospital. And she said, yeah, I got the email. The claim is opened. You'll see a doctor within 10 minutes. Sure enough, there's a gentleman that took us right in. While I was there, though, this is a really interesting part. While I was there at this hospital, I left her there because she had to stay overnight and go on IV. When I left, I went out to get a tuk-tuk back to our lodge, and I'm standing there waiting. And there was an older gentleman there standing beside me, and I said, "Well, we can share the tuk-tuk," and of course we did. And I said, "You were at the hospital?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, he said, "My wife fell in a sinkhole walking on the beach," and he said, "We have a condo here, and we've come every year for the last 22 years." And then I realized, because when I first took her in, I heard this screaming. I thought someone was having a baby. This lady was yelling. And I come to realize that she had fallen in a sinkhole. She had damaged or collapsed 4 of her vertebrae in her back, and she had to be bedridden.
Okay.
And what he had explained to me is he wasn't sure about his insurance, and that he had to have a flight from Germany come down, and they were going to take several seats out so she could lay flat. And he had a surgeon from Germany coming down to assist her on the way back. So he had no idea if his insurance was going to cover all of this. And I mean, he was devastated because he just didn't know what they were going to do in terms of payment and how they were going to manage. And so you don't realize some of these things happen. And you know, I mean, unfortunately, you have to think the worst case scenario, that something, even spraining or breaking an ankle, or like kidney stones, for example, excruciating pain, but you need to get attention, you need help. And, you know, in some cases, you don't want to be out of pocket with 50, 100, 200, God knows how much it is on a credit card, if you can even manage that. You certainly don't want to get home and sell your home and be in debt beyond means because you didn't take the insurance. So
some of these are extreme stories and obvious when it comes to making that phone call or reaching out or going through the hospital, the email, the number that everybody gets when they buy the insurance. I guess what is the thread? Judy, you mentioned earlier trip interruption and inconvenience, I suppose, for lack of a better term. What is the threshold? At what point do you say, well, that's just airports being airports? And then what is at the point where you go, no, I deserve something, or something should be happening about this?
So that trip interruption happens the moment you close your door and head to the airport. That's the benefit in a plan when it starts. For that portion of the disruption, though, when you say, when do I, the airlines cancel my flight, I think it's a matter of, the goal of that benefit is to get you to the destination. And then depending on the policy you choose and the benefits, but let's say you're going to lose 30% of your trip completely by the time you can get there. Well, some of the plans, if you're going to lose that much or more, that's an outright cancellation. You can walk away from it all and basically cancel. But it depends. Again, you have to kind of know what benefits you're getting in the policy, but there's always that way. The goal of the disruption is to get them to the destination. And even if an airline you booked on can't get you there, you can walk over to another airline, and yes, you pay it. That's not an upfront payment, but you keep those receipts. And that's something, the benefits are going to help you recoup those costs, because I hate to say it, but a lot of times the airlines just aren't covering as much as they used to when there's disruptions. So you're going to probably be out of pocket.
Can I ask a question then? So if when you get travel disruption insurance, so when I bought that insurance package from Manulife to go on the holidays, was that part of it? Because I know you'll find this hard to believe. I don't read the small print.
So you're one of the hundreds of people, like everybody the same, that doesn't read the policy. Yeah,
yes,
without knowing what you purchased, I can't really answer that. But and that, I think that's a key point you bring up, and I think this is where when people say, oh, I'm going no matter what, or all these things, but when they do decide to buy, how many of you have read your insurance policy? Can you tell me what's in your insurance policy? What's under trip cancellation benefits? What can I recoup? And I can tell you, when a client knows, they always say, know your trip, know your health, and know your policy. And that's THIA, the Travelers Health Insurance Association of Canada. And direct people there to that site if they're at all people that don't really, understand why insurance, because they're going to kind of give you the goods. But it's not only the fact of buying the plan, you have to understand what your benefits are. And I can tell you, it takes so much stress off the individual when they're standing there. They realize, if I don't get to my destination, I've got a $10,000 trip booked and it's non-refundable. How am I going to get there? That's a lot of stress. Well, as soon as they know, oh, wait a minute, I have some benefits in my plan, I think I'm going to be able to recoup this and get there. That takes a lot off. So I always say, read your policy. I'm going to test you, Jackie Ray. I'm going to get you to tell me what you get you to read your policy.
Okay. I'm going to school. I'm retired now. I've got all this time.
Reluctantly.
Hi, this is Terry Evans, hoping you'll join me for the Reluctantly podcast. ReluctantlyPodcast.com, with guests like Tom Cochran, Brian Johnson from AC/DC, Brian Baumler, and Kevin Lowe, formerly with the Edmonton Oilers. Also Darby Mills, Lee Aaron, Haley Benedict, and more. ReluctantlyPodcast.com.
Reluctantly.
Earlier in this episode, you were talking about, being bulletproof, thinking that you're still 20 or 25 years old. Nothing's going to happen to me. What about the other end of the spectrum? Is it a little more difficult as we get older, as we get, into our 60s, 70s, maybe even 80s? Is it more difficult to get travel insurance and everything that you offer?
Not really harder to get. I hate to say it, as we age, we get a few more aches and pains. But I'll say what Rick says. I'm not getting older. We're not the older ones. But there's a number of factors to realize with insurance. And I think sometimes older people tend to get a little nervous, especially if they have to fill a medical questionnaire. Don't think of it that way, because actually a medical questionnaire is helping the insurance company to determine the risk factor of your health. So overall, of course, the older we get, you do need that coverage more. And if you should have some pre-existing conditions, say that you're not 100% sure a regular plan would cover it, look at medical underwriting, because medical underwriting, if you qualify, then you're covered from day one once you go through their screening process. But no, it's more important than ever. I think when we're younger, we always think we're, like we mentioned earlier, invincible, but we all know, you need insurance no matter what age. But I think as you age, people tend to get a little more nervous, and they also realize the cost is going to be higher. And that, unfortunately, we can't change that. The premium could be higher than when you're in your 20s, but there's also a higher risk factor to an insurance on that too because of that.
What about excursions? There's things like riding the horse on the shore of the ocean, or ATVs, zip lines, scuba diving, that sort of thing. Does that have any bearing on whether you are or are not covered, or is there specifics that you can talk about?
Sure. Well, I guess go back to the reading your policy. There always will be exclusions under emergency medical. But I can tell you that scuba diving, as long as it's not your paid profession, that's not an exclusion. If you want to do ATV riding, that's not an exclusion. So it gives you, it's more the high risk. If you're going to do base jumping, then no, that or wing flutes, what do they call it? Wingsuit flying or whatever they call that.
Jackie Ray.
Yeah.
Jackie Ray, you got to check your policy next time.
I really have to check my policy. I'm the girl that curved that fell on my face.
Oh. I think when it comes to just everybody likes to experience a bit of adventure on their trips. It's just maybe try not be too adventurous, or listen to pay attention to, if you're on excursions, what the guides are telling you. I mean, they're always, we hear all sorts of stories, but there's one in particular I just wanted to mention because I think it shows how maybe getting a bit too adventurous can get yourself into a little bit of trouble. So this is actually, we were told this story actually by one of the medevac companies that we've used in the past, that is contracted out if it's determined that a medevac is how they need to get you back home. And it was clients in a couple in Botswana. And so they're in Africa and they're on this, one of the excursions in Botswana was kind of like in a canoe. I think they were dugout canoes, but you had with a guide and you go through the marshes and all that. But it was in the time of year when the baby hippos are just, they're quite cute and everybody wants to see baby hippos. But the guide specifically warned everybody, do not get close to the reeds because that's where they keep their babies. And the mother hippo is very, very aggressive. So, of course, what does this couple decide? They wanted to get a really good picture of a baby hippo. So I will prefix this story with saying it does have a happy ending, but they got too close. Next thing they know, their canoe was overturned by Mama. They got too close, flipped the canoe. She went down under. They were able to rescue her, but with the amount of injuries she had, the medevac from Canada was called in. It was determined once they stabilized her, and they had to fly her back from Africa. So again, without insurance, these costs would have been astronomical, but maybe people just have to be careful when they're doing some of the adventurous things, not to get too adventurous.
Did she get a good picture of the hippo?
Oh, I have a good one. I have a funny one on a claims. What insurance is, like I said, are we going to make it more sexy or something? I don't know, but
I have a slogan for you. In the insurance industry, you should go, shit happens. Be prepared.
And read the fine print, you dumbass.
Well, let's just say one of the stories we heard once was, you know how you have to send your documents in when you're putting a claim in. Well, there was one client that decided, their documents were hand drawn of what happened. So hand drew a horse, person falling off a horse. That was her injury. And then the next picture was a suitcase with a knife beside it and a slash that her suitcase got. Somebody took a knife and went through it. But she put in detail in the claims to say that her clothes and all her underwear was taken out of her suitcase. Like, these are things that I guess it gives a lighthearted moment to when they're dealing with more serious stuff. But this was what the person decided the claim documents were. So I just need to draw you stick men and show you a picture of what happened to me. So that one was a little bit amusing.
I'll tell you, anybody who's going to go through my luggage and take my underwear, you better take it on the way to the resort, not on the way home from the resort.
And let's talk about insurance.
Right.
I don't have my seatbelt on as we're doing this show.
That's not necessary in a motorhome, right? I'm not sure. What
I
is
hope
that?
not.
There's Jackie Ray and her buns again.
I think we're in Towfield.
Oh, you're in Towfield. Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Judy, what would be I'd love to hear like some really cool stories. Like what is like probably one of the most outlandish claims that you can recall?
Oh, Honestly, Rick, I don't even know if I could. I mean, that's really something probably I could probably find out some for you, but right off the top of my head right now, no. Like we usually every year at conference they will, the assistance company comes and does a presentation, and these are where these funny things come out because they obviously never, we hear about the serious stuff too, but it is, I think just in general, I bet you if you could be a fly on the wall when these calls come in, kind of to see what sometimes the assistance center have to navigate people through when it's not necessarily an emergency, but just some of the funny things that they get themselves into. Because believe me, travelers, I mean, we see it ourselves. Even when you travel yourself, you sometimes do things and you're like, wow, I didn't think I'd ever do that. And I sure got myself in a pickle over that one, or something like that. So, yeah.
Let's play a quick round of the yes-no game. You can tell us the answer is yes or the answer is no, Judy. Number
Okay.
one, my luggage is automatically covered by the airline. Yes or no?
No.
Don't rely on the airline for anything. Well, except for maybe getting you to your destination.
Not always.
Let's hope. Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes.
The next one, my provincial health care covers me everywhere.
No.
Yes, that's why we're doing this podcast. My credit card covers everything.
No.
Insurance only matters for old travelers.
No.
Again, with the no. I'm just keeping track here. That's 4 out of 4.
Yeah.
And I'm healthy. I probably don't need insurance.
No.
All no's.
Yeah. Well,
All knows.
we preface that with yes, you do need insurance. No to because you're not old or you're healthy. So
if you could give travelers listening one piece of advice before they board a plane, what would it be?
First of all, do you have your travel insurance? Number 2, have you actually read the policy and understand your benefits? And I think I'm going to preface back to what Thea promotes on their website is know your trip, know your health, and know your policy.
And of course, remember if you're scuba diving and a shark comes toward you, you just punch it in the nose. Punch the shark in the nose. The nose is very sensitive on the shark, so that should make the shark go away. If that doesn't work, beat it over the head with your stump and then use your other hand to call the insurance company.
Or get your wife to call.
Yeah, that might be easier.
2 stumps.
Very nice. Judy Bunkall from Manulife Insurance, thank you so much for joining us on the Zone 1 podcast. This has been a wealth of information and something that everyone should listen to before any trip anywhere, even domestic.
No, thanks. It was fun to join you guys.
Thanks again, Judy. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Judy.
You're
Can someone
welcome.
tell me where I am?
You're with what's his name?
Hi.
You're in Beaver County.
I'm in Beaver County.
If you're going through Toefield, you're in Beaver County.
Thank you.
This has been the Zone 1 podcast. For a premium travel experience, Rick McSwain from networktravel.ca, Jackie Ray Greening. I'm Terry Evans. The Zone 1 podcast is part of the Reluctantly Podcast Network.